councillors and staff of Tamworth Regional Council. Please give them great wisdom and unity, that every decision would be full of integrity and equity for the advancement of our region and community. We ask all of these things in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thanks, Scott. Thank you for that.
Do we have agenda?
Councillors, we'll move on with the printed agenda. First item on the agenda is apologies and leave of absence. I'd like to note that Councillor Stephen Mears has called in here sick leave, so he will be an apology. Will somebody move to accept that? Councillor Betts, second to Councillor Coates. All in favour, say aye. Councillors, we move on to item 2, which is community consultation. Tonight we have 3 speakers listed to speak. So they're in the order of Robert Book, Catherine Jackson and Philip Powell. So I'll call to the podium Robert Book, please. We have a policy and a procedure where we have a period of time for community consultation, and each speaker is given a period of 3 minutes to speak and state their case. Robert, please also state if you've given any donations to any staff or councillors, political type donations.
Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors. My name's Robert Book and I'm representing my parents, Les and Maria, who live on Ralph Road across from the DA site, and they've been there for around 30 years. I'm also a Kingswood resident, so I can speak as well. I would firstly like to emphasise that we have nothing against the horse events or the owner, and we are not looking to stop this DA fully from proceeding. Instead, we are looking for a compromise to maintain the peaceful amenity of the Kingswood neighbourhood, which is a basic right that residents are entitled to and a major factor why people choose to live out of Kingswood. If we could please put up this photo on the screen, and this will give everyone a real perspective of the site of this DA and its position in relation to nearby residents. You will see that the right side of the road with the horse arena is zoned RU4, primary production small lots, and the left side of the road is zoned R5, large lot residential. Please note just how close the site is to residential houses. We really don't understand how this DA has progressed to this stage given the size, scale and proximity of the proposal. Since May last year, many residents have raised valid concerns regarding noise, traffic, odour, dust and stormwater runoff connected to this DA, which have not been taken seriously enough by council staff. This left us with no other option than to engage the services of Tim Fitzroy and Associates of Ballina to conduct an independent environmental audit of the DA. I've provided a copy of the outcome of his review to all councillors early today, and this identifies many shortcomings and incorrect information with the entire DA, which I will now discuss. Council's own LEP states that one of the 3 key objectives of Zone RU4 is to minimise conflict between land uses within this zone and land uses within adjoining zones. Conflict currently exists, and there has been long-term conflict for many years in relation to this site. The very nature of the size, scale and proximity of this site to neighbouring residential properties means that there are no conditions that can be posed on the expansion of the horse facility that will minimise this conflict. If the site was 20 or 30 kilometres further out of town, we wouldn't even be having this discussion because it wouldn't be so close to residential properties. The position of the site means that the adjacent properties are heavily affected by the operations on the site, and these residents have just as much right as residents living in town to maintain a peaceful neighbourhood. Council has already demonstrated over recent years it doesn't have the resources or the power to enforce restrictions placed on the site because Council has received endless complaints about the site and nothing has ever been done about them. There have been many noise complaints to the police by residents. For example, one particular event a couple of years ago, the police were called out a couple of times during the same night, with the noise still continuing each time. The owner of this site has a long history of holding unapproved events and building unapproved structures on this site, as evidenced by the many photos provided to council staff over the years and also by council's own audit of the structures that has been built. No air quality assessment has been conducted as part of the DA. This is critical for these types of open air events with such close proximity to residential properties. Tim notes this is a major flaw in the DA submission and highly recommends one be done. Tim Fitzroy engaged Noise Management Services to review the noise impact assessment undertaken by Muller Acoustic Consulting for the owner, and they found that this significantly understates vehicle and truck movements, and as a result, the modelling is not relevant to the way that events are actually run. There are no noise model images provided, no identification of noise sources, no noise contours, and no description of where noise sources are located relevant to existing and proposed structures and sensitive receivers. The owner's landscaping and planting of deciduous trees has done nothing to screen the noise, given the large open space which is like an amphitheatre.
Robert, I'll have to get you to bring your presentation to a close shortly. You've done your time.
I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, given the important nature of this for Kingswood residents, and given that we weren't able to present at the last meeting, I'd kindly request an extension of time, please.
Well, we can't really accept that unless council wants to suspend standing orders.
The owner of the previous meeting had over 7 minutes to talk and his solicitor had 5 minutes, and we weren't able to present because we didn't receive the letter until the day of the meeting. So I think it's a fair
Councillor Tickle?
Time.
Would someone like to second that? Councillor Betts, all in favour to suspend standing orders? I'll give you another 2 minutes, Mr Wolf.
Thank you very much. On top of the DA allows entertainment in the form of DJ and speakers. Firstly, what has this got to do with the horse events? And secondly, entertainment is prohibited in the zone. The owners indicated that there will be 1,200 cattle brought in for large events, which will involve 24 semi-trucks transporting 50 head of cattle at a time. So that involves 24 trucks entering the property to drop off cattle, 24 trucks exiting the property, which means 48 truck movements. And then there will be the same number collecting the cattle after the events. So that is 96 truck movements for each of these large events going through the main entrance over the cattle grids, which are 50 metres from neighbouring houses. The owner would have you believe that trucks entering and exiting the site only do so from the New England Highway side of Spains Lane, but this is not true. Please take note of the video during Catherine's presentation whereby in the space of 4 minutes, 4 B-double trucks enter and exit the site via the unsealed Durai Road end of Spains Lane. Site contamination has not been adequately addressed by Council, and Tim's review has kindly provided plenty of guidance here about the steps that Council should follow in relation to this. Tim didn't spend time on the stormwater runoff, but Catherine will cover this later. The bottom line is that even if Council were to conduct further required assessments of air quality, more realistic noise modelling, site contamination investigations and sewer collection analysis, these all eventually pass the guidelines, we are still left with the fact that Council is unable to satisfy one of the fundamental requirements of its own LEP, being to minimise conflict in the zone. It would need to relocate the site to achieve this. We therefore put forward the motion that the DA be rejected in its current form because it contains many misleading and non-factual statements and reports. A fair compromise would be to remove the approval for the large proposed events, such as the camp drafts, because 5 minutes down the road is the purpose-built ALEC facility.
Robert, I'll have to ask you to bring your presentation to a halt now.
I will. We propose that the entry be moved to the Durai Road end of the property, which Philip will talk about. Just lastly, it is very disappointing that residents have to go to this extent to try and disprove an application, which has an unworkable flaw being the position of the site. My mum has been extremely sick this past year and a half, and instead of the family being able to focus on getting her well, we've had to deal with this DA since May 2022. At the time, cost and stress of this matter is placed on their families inexcusable.
Thank you, Robert. Could I have a motion to resume standing orders, please, councillors? Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Coates. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Council, standing order has been resumed. We'll call on the second speaker, Catherine Jackson.
Good evening.
Catherine, I'll ask you to state your name, of course, and the item you wish to speak to, and advise us, because it's a development matter, whether you've made any political contributions to staff or councillors.
No.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and other councillors. My name is Catherine Jackson. I live 16 Rathwaite, Kingswood, with my husband Don. Directly across the road from less than 50 metres away from the horse training facility entrance. Before I start, could I please start playing the video that I have supplied, and I will talk as I play in the background. This will demonstrate the large WD trucks entering and leaving the property, and then later the stormwater runoff generated from the property. I wish to raise the major concerns that impacts Don and I from the proposals of expand the horse training facility. And these are excessive noise from the vehicles, trucks, PA equipment, loud music and generators used, stormwater runoff causing flooding and erosions and adjacent properties and the road. Excessive traffic, number of events held, the location of the camping grounds causing noise and odour, bands playing louder, operating all hours of the night, impact on our well-being and also the residents walking along Spain's Lane, including children riding their bikes, walking their pets and just getting their daily exercise. With the entrance of the horse training facility being so close, the vehicles and the trucks entering the exits, the property of excess noise travelling over the category, and this happens all hours through the night. This traffic of the property increases dramatically when the event is operating, so then expenses to the facility will make an event worse. Our bedrooms to the house are on the Spains Lane side of the property, so we are affected by vehicles' movements all hours of the night as they shine their headlights into the bedrooms and even with our blinds closed. We are unable to keep the windows open for fresh air because of the noise and dust and odour, and this affects our sleep. Our concerns main entrance being moved, the number of trucks, VWs, semi-trailers, entering and exiting properties as shown in the video, which not only creates noise but also cross over the main road, taking up the road as they enter in and exit the property. The expansions of the driveway as shown on the DA of the property will not change the fact that the trucks will use both sides of the main road, which is not equipped for heavy vehicles. The Spain Lane Road and Ralph Road intersection is not designed for heavy vehicles, and Council's assessments of the DA has said that no upgrades works are required in Spain's Lane, which is simply not true. When the trucks exited the property, they had towards the unsealed section of Spain's Lane and leaving a large cloud of dust, which is blowing onto the property. On top of the compounding issues with the state of the roads and the amount of the heavy traffic that we'll be using in the intersection, we also have to look at the fact that they want to schedule 32 large events for the year. This leaves 20 weekends of small events, and there's no weekends for the residents of Kingswood to enjoy a peace and tranquility of which this is the main reason they purchased our properties here. Stormwater runoff and environment impact. With the relocation.
Sorry, can I get to start closing up your presentation? I've given you a little bit extra time.
Thank you. I just got to finish this little bit, please. With the relocations of the entrance of the main development of the horse facility, with the increase of the overflow and flow of the stormwater within the flows into the adjacent properties, causing flooding and erosion, shown on the video, stormwater running off the property near the entrance of and travelling along Spain's Lane, down through the adjacent properties like a small river. Also is an impact on the roads where the water lies, as shown on the video, where a car is travelling through the stormwater runoff. The building of the water of the road is located near the base of the hill crest, and the car is unable to see the build-up of the water until they're on it. The stormwater issues have been brought up to the council many years, and they have been ignored. Even the owner's training facility, as part of the DA, has stated that this is their problem. Why is this not a matter for the council or the property?
Catherine, I'll have to ask you to bring your presentation. I've given you a lot extra time.
Thank you. These are the main concerns that we have from a personal perspective, and I would like to think that as permanent residents of Kingswood, that our opinion matters.
Thank you, Catherine. I'll now call on Philip Powell to come to the podium and please state your name, item number, and if you made any political donations to staff or...
No, I have not.
Thanks, Philip. You two have 3 minutes. I have given the others quite a bit extra time, so try and keep it as brief as you can.
Thank you to the Mayor and the councillors for this opportunity to submit my thoughts and concerns for this proposed DA application. Firstly, as a retired builder, I have to say I've had many successful dealings with the council over the years for both commercial and private projects. My concern with this proposal is that it appears to be, on the initial reading of the paper, that all the requirements, mind you, which I had to deal with prior to the granting of DAs, are to be addressed after the granting of the DA for a period of time up to 6 months following the granting of the DA. An example of this is environmental issues, stormwater and water retention, waste collection and disposal, noise control, landscaping, lighting of public areas. The owner has a long history of putting up structures without a DA on the site, and it's clearly evident in this submission. If council approves this development, they're basically giving Kingswood and Tamworth residents the green light to put up structures on their properties whenever they see fit without a DA, and then beg forgiveness afterwards. Not sure this is the message that council would like to send to the residents, actually. And there appears to be no penalties imposed by council for these actions. Right. The entry should have never been moved to its current location, which has created a four-way intersection from what was previously a T intersection. Mr Grant indicated at the previous meeting that he purchased the property in 2009 based on Google Images. The entry was moved. The previous DA to approve the horse facility was then in 2013, and according to council at this time, it was acknowledged that the entry repositioning was unauthorised, but then council approved it. The problem is that we've seen no evidence that the residents were notified of this change to the entry, or that they were given the opportunity to object or express their opinions. The following photos firstly show the position of the old and the new entry, which is clearly indicated on that photo there, along with the photos in April 2008 and December 2009 of the old entry and photos for the same period of the new entry. Just leave one more, go to number 6. As a long-term resident of Rolfe Road, I request that the proposed alteration to the entry of the complex be relocated towards the Duray Road western end of the property, beyond the residential area of 15 Rolfe Road, where there's no other continuing residences. The noise of the trucks, B-doubles, horse floats, etc., travelling over the cattle grid vibrates through my house and is unacceptable, considering there is an easy alternative to eliminate this problem, i.e. move the entry. I've witnessed B-double trucks reversing their rear trailer down Rolfe Road to gain access to the complex. This holds up the traffic on Rolfe Road for up to 5 to 7 minutes when there is more than one truck in line, and that's a common occurrence. This also disrupts the local school bus route, and with the extra trucks travelling Rolfe Road, increases the risk for the safety of the school children and the residents who walk the road regularly, both for exercise and for the need to go to school and come home. Council put a condition on the DA that there is to be a noise assessment done within 12 months, but have not indicated how they are going to monitor or enforce the noise conditions, given that history shows Council doesn't have the resources to do this. No mention of how the Council will deal with complaints during this problem period, what type of review would be done at the end of the 12 months and by who. Council indicate that noise monitoring is required and a noise validation assessment report, but who is to arrange this? Surely not the owner, given that the independent review of the noise consulting was found to be understated.
Philip, I'll have to get you to bring your presentation.
I've got about 20 seconds left.
Go.
I'm not convinced that any imposed conditions of the DA by the council will be either adhered to or to be policed, considering the past history of the complex. This DA needs to be reconsidered and rejected in its current form. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks to all those that gave a presentation. Councillors, that brings to the end of community consultation. Item 3 on the agenda, which is minutes from the previous meeting. Could I have somebody move their true and correct record? Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Anyone wish to make a question or comment about those minutes? That being the case, I'll put that to the council as being a true and correct record of the last meeting. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we move on to item 4, disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight for councillors? There are no disclosures of interest. We'll move on to item 5, mayoral minute. There is no mayoral minute. Councillors, we'll move to item 6, notice of motions. There are no notices of motion tonight. So, councillors, we move on to open council report and we'll move to item 7.1. And I'll call for someone to move 7.1. Councillors, all on Councillor Berg, sorry.
Yeah, I'm happy to move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Yeah, you're happy to second it, Mark. Thank you. Councillor Burke, do you want to speak to that? You're moving it as it is.
Look, Mr. Mayor, I was going to look at the one condition that is in conjunction, which is condition 8, with regards to the 5-year, and I was going to move an amendment that we adopt the recommendation without that number, item 8. So, is that moving an amendment, or
That's moving a recommendation. If you'd wish to have done that, you probably should have moved the recommendation as printed, but not including item 8. But if you want to now move, you've moved the printed recommendation, and Mark Sutherland has seconded that. If you want to change that, you can do that now.
Okay, so that's what I'm wanting to do, Mr. Mayor.
Is the seconder happy with that?
No.
Okay, now we're in a bit of a spot. Okay.
Mr Mayor, councillor can move an amendment and seek a seconder for the amendment.
So, Councillor Burke, you've moved the recommendation, you've got a seconder, the seconder's not happy to move that. Is there anybody wishing to move an amended motion? You want to move that as an amendment again?
Yes, if I can.
Seek a seconder.
Yep.
So you want to move the recommendation as printed. This is an amendment, excluding item 8. So do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that?
Mr. Mayor, this came before council's 3 meetings ago, and at that particular meeting, the concern that we had with regards to 5 years being a condition put on the condition of the consent, that at any time up to that 5-year period that it could be removed if all the conditions weren't met. Mr. Mayor, I just think that it sends a difficult message back to people who are wishing to invest in our region, in particular in regards to controversial type developments, which this one clearly has controversy around it. I believe that the conditions of consent, in addition to taking out condition 8, address a lot of the issues that have been raised by the concerned people here tonight, and were raised by the proponent at the last meeting as well. And I just feel it's important that as a council we look at this issue, see if this is where we want to send our messaging with regards to conditions 5 years out for an approval, and see if there's any support in terms of putting the amendment forward.
So we're now speaking about the amendment, councillors, which is the printed recommendation with 8 being excluded, condition 8 being excluded. Do I have someone wishing to speak against that recommendation? Councillor Roller.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the residents have made it quite clear that their neighbour has not been good in terms of noise and conditions of that project generally, and I think they have legitimate concerns in relation to noise and into the future. And I certainly oppose the deletion of dot point 8. In terms of we've seen, I've heard that the proponent actually is happy with the conditions of consent. as printed on Tamworth Regional Council's website, and I think that there's no justification for removing of that condition, given that it's a good way for council to be able to manage complaints into the future.
Anyone who wishes to speak in favour of the recommendation? Councillors? Sorry, which recommendation, which is the amendment? Sorry. Anyone further want to make comment on that? There being no further comments, councillors, I will now put the amendment as the recommendation as printed, excluding item 8. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour say aye, but you have to show your hands. Or those against? You haven't voted?
No.
That's just about the end of me. Okay, the amendment's lost. We do now have the motion as printed. All those in favour, please say, we'll go back to the amendment. The motion is printed. Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? It's been moved and seconded. Councillor Ryder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to the concerns that the residents have raised in community consultation, I think it was actually quite a legitimate request in terms of adding a condition for alternative truck access to the western side of the property, which would largely keep large vehicles away from the residential area. I guess I had questions in relation to what road enhancements are proposed to Spains Lane, should the DA be granted approval. What management of overland stormwater flows are proposed? Were any fines issued for unauthorised structures previously, and if not, why not? Because obviously, as we know, we're now in a position to provide retrospective consent for unauthorised structures. And is there some form of proposed 24-hour complaints line that impacted ratepayers can ring when the music or noise continues into the early hours? On the last point, I received many calls from frustrated residents imploring me to come out, particularly one day, a few years ago, to hear the noise emanating from the site for myself, which I did. It was significant. And when I raised the issue with the general manager at the time, I finally received, I felt, an indifferent response that council will deal with that problem next time. Well, now is the next time. My point is, what levers will be in place to ensure the proponent is compliant, respectful towards the residential homes at Kingswood? And that we saw that photo of, on one side, RU4 zoned land, and on the other side, RU5 or R5. It shows how closely juxtaposed that development and the significant development is to residential area. And I can't think of any other place in the whole of Tamworth other than West Scully Stadium that actually has such a large development in close proximity to residential estate. There appears, there is that, of course, land use conflict in relation to RU4 opposite, and I believe that it ignores the fact that those opposite are residential properties which are on the edge of a larger residential subdivision, which probably in the years ahead will grow further into residential subdivision. There appears to be little provision to address air quality, noise and vibration from numerous motor vehicles. And also, so look, I oppose the recommendation because I think that, as mentioned, there's a number of issues that haven't been addressed previously, and I'm worried about them into the future that they won't be addressed by approval of this DA.
Anyone wish to speak for the recommendation? He was against.
No, but he moved it.
Councillor Tickle.
I'm just after some clarification on meeting procedure, because I believe that the vote that was taken on the amendment was for each, in which case does not the Mayor have the deciding vote?
Councillor Tickle, you are 100% right, and we've just been having that conversation. So I'm thinking we're going to have to reset the vote. We're going to go back to the amendment, and so we're all clear. We're going to go back to the amendment. Sorry about this, people in the audience. We're going to go back to the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment, which is a printed recommendation, minus item 8. Those in favour of that amendment, please raise your hand. It's now 5. Those against the amendment? 3. The amendment becomes a motion. The amendment now becomes a motion. We've now spoken to the motion. Does anyone else want to speak to the motion before we carry it on any further? There's no further discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, just ask for a little bit of clarity, potentially from the director, just around the concerns around the conflict of zones that came up just some clarity.
So we've got different zones. You've got one different zone on one side of the block to the block, and then a different zone. I don't know whether the director wishes or the acting general manager wishes to make comment on that.
To you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Sutherland, certainly where the residents that have raised their concerns, where they live is actually a residential zone.
Yeah.
So that's
Thank
the
you,
difference.
Councillor. Yeah.
Whereas where the proponent is, where the development is, it is a small lot, rural, agricultural zone where you expect agricultural activity. So I think there is potentially a conflict between those two, depending on how the business is run and how the consent conditions can allay that conflict.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just for a bit of, to clarify my question was just to see how the conditions of consent have addressed that potential conflict.
And there's certainly been that intent to address that conflict and minimise the impact on the residents.
Thanks for your question, Councillor Sutherland. It's a good one to clarify. Councillors, further comments before we take the item? Councillor Southall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a couple of very brief comments. Firstly, to say that out of all the work we do in council in my first term, this has got to be probably the hardest thing that we do when we get development applications like this, which are contentious and where everyone isn't all in agreement on the outcome. I'll just say that firstly. Secondly, what I will say on the plus side of this particular development, we've talked about it at length as a council with both staff and our councillors. The positives here are there's a lot of them. The economic benefit to our region is clear. It's very much in line with our equestrian industry that we're currently building up and is just continuously progressing, which it complements our equine centre quite nicely. On the other hand, as we've heard tonight through our community consultation, there are a number of issues around this particular development. We've heard about traffic, noise, dust, visual amenity, waste, air quality and vibration. All of these are not small issues. And for those sitting with us tonight in the gallery, I definitely feel for you. I think the hardest part about this development is the neighbours. However, we have actually spoken with the proponent, and he has assured us that in discussions with our team that he wants to be a good neighbour and he will be complying with those many conditions that are outlined within this particular project. So what I will say is that it's very difficult to be sitting in our shoes at this moment. This is not an easy part of the role. It's probably not the most enjoyable part of the role. I don't know if my other councillors would agree. And we do feel for you, and we're very hopeful that the proponent will comply with things such as the noise, the 10 o'clock curfew, and all of those others that have been listed. So thank you. That's just my brief comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Southwell. Were there any further comments before I put the item to a vote? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree very much with what Councillor Southwell has said, and no one really wants to stifle any development in our region, and it's always a difficult situation when we're trying to ensure that the amenity and the livability of areas are still adhered to and our residents can enjoy where they're living. And unfortunately, or fortunately, this will always involve some compromises, honesty and trust. And I believe one of the other councillors, might have been Councillor Rodder, mentioned that there has not been a great deal of trust from this particular proponent in the past. So, but as well as that, we also have to consider legislation and law. So it does become a difficult situation to make decisions on. And I believe that by actually removing that 5 year, we still have processes in place. We still have a register of complaints. There's still ways and means that we can ensure that the extensive list of conditions are adhered to. And it is a difficult decision, but with all those things in mind, I think we actually have to keep that in mind when we're making our decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Katz. Any further comments? There being no further comments, Council, is this a development matter? We have to show of hands. I'll put the recommendation, which is a printed recommendation minus condition 8. All those in favour say aye, or put their hands up. Aye. Those against? Carried 7-1. Thank you, councillors, and thank you for those in the audience that came and gave your presentation. And I can guarantee you that the staff will do what they have to do to make sure that all of those conditions are complied with. Those of you that don't wish to stay for the rest of the meeting, won't be rude if you leave, but you are welcome to stay. Councillors, we'll now move on to infrastructure and services, and I'll call for a mover and a seconder for the Tamworth Regional Local Traffic Committee. Move Councillor Betts, second to Councillor Berg. Councillor Betts, do you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillors, I'll put the recommendation, 8.1. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carry. Councillors, this is a very important one tonight, the drought management plan. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Betts, second to Councillor Coates. Councillor Betts, do you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to move this motion because ever since I've been on the Amalgamated Council in 2004, there's been strategies put in place to make the best use that we possibly can out of the available water across our city and our region. I'll say this every time, in 1996 till now, the potable water consumption by the Tamworth City Council and the Regional Council has not increased, and that has been to the good management of the staff, council staff, and especially the community. But one thing, back in 2016, we had a dam that was just upgraded from 62 gigalitres to 104 gigalitres. We came into the drought, and within 3 years, we were in the worst water restrictions that we have ever had. And that was 40 gigalitres extra. We've went through other droughts, probably not quite as bad, but it is a water management issue. We're heading into an El Nino event right now, and it's confirmed El Nino, and we are at the present time, and I looked it up tonight, 100.35% of capacity in Chaffey Dam, which is 104 gigalitres and a little bit. Dungown Dam has now got 90.36% as we speak, and the council does not get any water out of Chaffey Dam right now. We have been accessing that water through all the city's water, the Moomba Katingal, through the Dungown Dam. So, at the start of this El Nino event, we have basically a full capacity in our storage. It is a management issue, and as we go through this El Nino event, it is absolutely imperative that the government, the state government, really manages our water resource, because we have got enough water and they need to manage it. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? Anyone wish to make further comment on the recommendation? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question first on in the annexures. There's a table about the levels that our region will adopt level 1 through to 5. Did I miss is there an equal? Is there a table attaching those levels to the levels of Chaffey Dam?
Yes, there is.
Because I must have missed
it. It's in the document.
Yeah, I must have missed it. But anyway, I thought it would that would be the case. But look, it is great to have a plan, and this is a thank you. It is great to have a plan, and this is a great plan. I believe we can certainly laud it. I think the crux of our issues here will be when we slip into deeper drought. The Peel Valley water sharing plan has not changed, and that's what we need to change to get the, I guess. And of course, we've got to do a few other things. We'd like to get a bigger slice of that Chaffey Dam pie, which I actually thought we were going to get in 2016 when Chaffey Dam was augmented from 62 to 100 gigalitres of water. That didn't seem to be the case during the 2017 to 2020 drought. But as Councillor Betts did say, it is a management issue, and I have always believed it's been a management issue. And while Tamworth Regional Council and its residents, particularly Tamworth, Katingal and Moonbi, that draw water from Chaffey Dam, have been very responsible, particularly during the last drought. It would demonstrate that the government previously wasn't very responsible, and that's what my concern would be heading into another dry spell, is that we really need to, as a region, make it quite clear to the government that their policies need to change. And I think it does need to start with probably a discussion about changing the Peel Valley water sharing plan, which doesn't currently give us any more than what we currently have in our high security licence. We'd like, obviously, them to control releases, because even if our residents make the savings, as we saw in the last drought, Water New South Wales didn't make savings that we probably expected them to do, and that's why we're put in that invidious position of facing almost dead storage at the start of 2020. I think, so I guess the next step for our council would be to have a meeting with Water Minister Jackson, in the hope that she might understand that any savings our community make as we progress the water level restrictions, we would like to think that the government would be equally as responsible and join with us in limiting its releases of water from Chaffey Dam. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder, and you're right on the nail there. We've actually spoken to the Minister, we've written to the Minister and explained, Bruce has explained that very well, where we are and where we could end up, and we do need a change in that water sharing plan. I think that that is going to happen. I think there will be some movement on that in coming months. We need to try and get this right. In particular, get the water sharing plan right, because the new Dungown Dam was put on hold and that hasn't proceeded. So another comment you made, Councillor Rodder, which is very pertinent. The information actually goes into we're going back into the next report, which is the demand management, and that is back in 2007 we were averaging about 350 kilolitres of water per household, and of course with all the work that the staff have done and the community have been very good and come on board and actually accepted water saving measures in a fantastic way, and the community should be congratulated for it. We are now back down to around that 270 kilolitres per household per year, so that's fantastic. And in another graph in the documentation, we actually shown as using about 246. So we're way down as in comparison to many other regional centres and many centres across regional New South Wales. So you're 100% right, Councillor Rodder. Further comments, please. Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, this is a really, really detailed document. I think one that we're calling on us as councillors here tonight to adopt, and also to adopt the signage, associated signage that will be going on display as we enter into. I think we're actually adopting it with the triggers points and the arrow mechanism to explain to the community what level of restriction we're in. Mr Mayor, it's one of the complexities of water consumption that when you've got a good season and plenty of water, people use less water. The inverse relationship applies when we hit dry times and we don't get the rainfall, where the requirement to use more water in the gardens and everything becomes a really extra demand on our load. As Councillor Betts so rightly said, we are actually declared in an El Nino now, but we're entering this El Nino with both of our dams almost at top level capacity, which is a wonderful thing that buys us time. Mr Mayor, one of the things that it doesn't talk about in the report in any great detail is water reuse, water purification and water, particularly with regards to one of the major developments that we've got happening in town now that's actually commenced out at one of the processing works. So part of the consent there is that has to have recycling of water. Mr Mayor, I just wonder what sort of impact, it's not calibrated into the drought management plan, but I wonder what it would look like in terms of giving us more time. In reading the report, 45% of non-residential usage is used by 4 water users, and they are our food processing works in Tamworth. So I just wonder what sort of impact that may have in terms of buying us time. But in buying us time, as Councillor Rodder said, the water sharing plan then becomes a huge issue. Why should we recycle our water but give away our water that we're actually able to hold back because we're not using it, because we're being diligent with our use of water? And I'd like that sort of information, I think, to start to be thought about and calibrated into our thinking in the future. There's also mentions backwash water, and I understand that when we get down to those levels that I think it's at level 4, that the backwash water won't be able to use in a couple of precincts, and that there may be alternatives put in place for those. But the one that does concern me is, and it's on page 121, which is the closure of pools when we reach level 4, and that's at 20%, Mr Mayor. And Mr Mayor, I think that we should try as best we can to keep public utilities open, no matter how dry it is, to try and give our community the opportunity to at least have leisure and fitness and all those other attributes that water activities bring. And in speaking with our Director of Wastewater and Waste and Water, I might just ask if it's possible for him to comment with regards to the pool closures, with regards to specifically potable water and groundwater, where it seems if there's an opportunity where the pools may be able to be extended beyond moving out of level 3 and into level 4. And again, commend the report. I think it's now that we're heading into potentially drought with the El Nino, to have the report adopted by this council here tonight, I think gives us a strategy and a pathway moving forward to address the issue of using our water as best we can and be on top of it right from the start.
Thanks, Councillor Burke. Before I ask Bruce to make comment on that, I'll just talk about the purification plan. Once we've got that in place and working, there will certainly have to be some further work done on the drought management plan and the demand management plan, because that will impact on it. At this point in time, it's not actually in operation. Hasn't even started construction, so we can't be considering it because it's not there. But it'll certainly impact on those reports into the future. And Bruce, would you like to make comment to Councillor Burke's question with the pools?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, under the drought management plan that you may well adopt, at level 5, all pools across the council area, all council-owned pools across the council area, will be closed unless they're able to be filled up or topped up by some other source other than potable water. During the last drought, we were able to do that for a number of pools. Whether we'll still be able to do that in the next drought remains to be seen, but that is the intention at the moment, that all pools will be closed at level 5. At level 4, the the Tamworth Olympic pool's closed, but the other pool in Tamworth still remain open. And then at level 5, all the pools across council areas are closed, and unless they can be topped up by some alternate water source. Now, depending on the leak, the amount of water that the pool loses on any particular day, that makes it either easy or difficult to keep the pool topped up, and I don't know what the pool's conditions will be like when we do get into another drought, but that's what the drought management plan is saying at the moment. That answer your question, Councillor Burke?
Councillor Burke?
Look, it certainly does. I could have a supplementary, and it's probably a cheeky one. If we were to get the appropriate funding and progress with building the aquatic centre, would it be able to be maintained full through a drought at levels 4 and 5?
Councillor,
Mayor, look, if I'll have a go at that, because the new aquatic centre has covered pool, and it's new, I assume that it won't leak very much, and certainly won't suffer from evaporation like the other pools do. So the possibility of us doing that is more likely than it is at the moment. The only issue that I would caution council is in the location out there. Groundwater is very scarce out there, so that may be
Councillor Burke, a much higher likelihood of it staying open, of being a new pool, and hopefully no leaks. The current pools in Tamworth both leak like you wouldn't believe. So, councillors, further comments? Councillor Betts, do you want to close the debate?
I'll close the debate. And very, very briefly, because basically everything's that I wanted to say in the closing has been said. The only thing I would say is leading into the drought in 2016, that both dams were at full capacity. So the difference is now that we have information of the worst drought that we've experienced. They need to act on that now, because if they don't act on that now, we will end up in the same situation. And when Tamworth nearly got to ground zero, which meant that there couldn't be enough water trucked in, trained in to support our current community. They need to get that right. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Yes. So, Mr Mayor, Councillor Betts and councillors, the Mayor mentioned that we have written to the Minister, and that is, the Mayor has written to the Minister, and that is essentially what the letter says, that we need the government to make some decisions in the short term, soon, because if they wait too long and then they try and change the rules, there will be no water available to improve our water security. So we've written that to the Minister, that's what we've told them needs to happen. Whether they do that or not,
Thank you. Councillors, the debate's now closed. I'll put the recommendation. All in favour say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. We'll move on to 8.3. Demand management plan. Could I have a move and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Tickle, second to Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Tickle, you wish to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is another very detailed report which has included extensive community consultation and feedback which has been addressed in the report. Essentially, the demand management plan focuses on how we can conserve water in the future by continuing water efficiency assessments, water rebates, as well as other community programs, increasing awareness not only to the residents, but not only for residential use, but also for non-residential use. And we've heard a mention of the need for the water purification plant, which we have, as our director said, been in extensive talks with government. We were encouraged to receive some funding in the last state budget to go towards further planning for that facility, so that certainly will extend our water further. Also, as has already been mentioned, the residents of our community have really embraced water efficiency programs themselves, including grey water recycling, and I'll have to say, thanks to our Livable Communities and our Water and Waste Directorate, we have made considerable progress with that some years ago, and many people have implemented systems to recycle grey water, and indeed industry have got various recycling programs in place. Residents as a whole and business are very much more aware of what can be done to save water. For example, Waterwise Gardens, the planting of natives, which take a lot less water. I've mentioned grey water systems. We've got a number of incentives through council to encourage people installing those systems, tanks, and a number of other initiatives. So this plan is ongoing. It will see different everyday water conservation measures for watering at home, and I know that the residents will continue to be responsible, as they have been during many years now, as instanced by our water consumption. One point that many residents have made is that they realised that they had been overwatering their gardens because many of their shrubs and something lived through the drought, so they realised that they didn't really need to be out there with a hose every night or once a week giving it a good soak anyway. Some things, of course, died, but that comes back to selecting the right species, and council have done a lot of work on that too as far as that goes. So thank you to all the residents out there and to our staff for their ongoing work in this directorate to see the reports and the achievements that we have before us tonight.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation by Councillor Berg?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I just want to reflect on a couple of things with the consumption issue. Is that we've come so far from when we wouldn't allow people to put tanks to catch their rainfall on the houses, that they had to use the town water reticulation supply. Not only do that, we also now have water reuse, the grey water mechanism that has given us an incredible amount of extra capacity and reduced consumption, but also people's attitudes, as Councillor Tick, I think, have really moved in a very positive way to make us aware of what it is that we do and how precious our water is. It's great to see that that all of those things, I think, are being adopted, in particular with new developments, and it's also great to see that we've got a community that I think if we did a straw poll out there today, that most people would know now that we've moved into El Nino. And I think once people know and understand that we are heading into a drought, and what it may look like with the other one still being very fresh in our minds, that their consumption patterns and demands will and have changed, and I think we'll get better results, particularly if we can keep that in front of people.
Further comments? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I think that having this draft demand management plan is really, it's important. It highlights to the community, I guess what we're all starting to be aware of is that, over the years we've learnt and I don't know about anyone else, but I certainly feel guilty if I leave the tap on when I clean my teeth. And I mean, small things like that, the changes that we can make along the way, and that's come through education and awareness. And, while we've got those, I guess, paybacks where, people can actually reclaim for their water coolers and actually get money back for fans and try and decrease the use of water coolers. And grey water systems, I have one at home, and in 12 months I have not put a sprinkler in my backyard and it's as green as anything. So I think we really need to be focusing on that so that we can actually keep that under control. I think the clever signage that we've got, the new signage, is actually consistent. So it doesn't matter where you are in our LGA, people are aware of what each of those things mean, and it gives us some examples of how we can go about doing that. So I think I really commend the report. It's excellent, and I support it totally.
Further comments? No further comments. Council, I'll just make one very brief one, and that is that many areas in the state of New South Wales are now declared as drought affected, but there are no areas that are declared in drought. I doubt that will stay like that for too much longer, but it's just a bit of trivia. Councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Council, we move on to item 9.1, and I'll look for a mover and a seconder. And just note that all of those returns are here on display on the table. Move councillor Betts, second to councillor Southwell. Councillor Betts, any comments?
Yeah, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that? Put the recommendation that we advise the Office of Local Government accordingly. All in favour?
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we move now into community services, and we do not have any items there, so we'll move to item 11, and I'll ask the Acting General Manager, do we have any requests that items in confidential should be heard in
No,
public?
Mr Mayor.
Anyone in the audience wish to raise that some of those confidential items be heard in public, open meeting? No? So councillors, can I have someone move? We move. Councillor Betts, second to councillor Southwell. All that we move into closed council. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Councillors, we'll now move into closed council.
I wonder who owned them.
The Acting General Manager to report on the items in closed council.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this is a report on the closed session of the Ordinary Council meeting of October 2023. In closed council, you considered the items 12.1, 12.2 and 12.3, and for each of those items you adopted the recommendation as per the business paper. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. So I'll call for a
Motion to accept, yeah.
motion to accept. All those in favour?
No.
Aye. That was councillor Betts and councillor Roddick.
And councillor